Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So this is part 2 of Dave's bonsai garden. Okay, so this bench, we're not going to stop and talk about every single tree here. There are 3 that I want to single out. This one here was a tree that a club member, Alf Jones at Shibui Bonsai Kai, had sold to Craig May. Craig and I worked in it at a literati symposium and turned it on right up. And it's changed shape a number of times. And here it is, I don't know how many years later, at Dave's garden and looking really, really strong. Couple from my garden, couple that Dave has started. This is a little,
no, you gave it to me.
I know, this is a little, let me give you something back, Dave. A little maple forest that we put together. This here has got a cool story. This is from a much bigger tree that I dug in Rustenburg in 1997 or 1998. And it literally was like a raft. It had grown roots. It was attached to the main tree. It had grown roots. And I was able to detach it. And it got quite damaged by the pesticide, but it's come back very nicely. But the cool thing about this tree is that this piece of deadwood here was actually on the tree here, but it was sort of curved up and around. So I took it off and put a peg through and glued it and carved this back. And
yeah, that's right.
It's actually quite a cool little story.
In fact, that actually makes the tree.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because on its own, and I remember when it was in your garden.
In the garden, yeah.
And check how you.
And it had all this negative space here, but there was nothing because this is all big root over here, which the tree needed until this has grown. So I mean, this you could actually cut off now if you wanted to. But I mean, that's actually quite a cool story.
But
so it just goes to show.
That's Richard's strength. A normal tree, average, very average, just another tree that's slanted, and check it how unique you took the same branch and just put it in there. That I think, it's not about bonsai, it's about bonsai art.
It's the art, I guess, yeah.
It's the art that a lot of us don't have.
So it's a part that's sometimes good and sometimes bad, because you become a bit of a horticultural wizard. So you can kind of do something with everything, save everything. You kind of want to save everything, but you really shouldn't all the time.
Yeah, that was cool.
So this is Dave's raft that he started. So this was an upright tree.
Please don't laugh.
And no, it's coming. Look at this. I can't believe how this tree has grown. It's really come along.
So this is one of those trees
a raft that he started on his own.
It was kind of,
underneath here it's all snake. It's a typical imported tree from Korea or Taiwan or somewhere, and it's going to be an absolutely fantastic raft now.
So it was this was the root, and so Richard just taught me just to keep washing it away every time you water.
Yeah, it's strong enough now.
Just wash. Here's a boo.
So
thank you.
This one here is a tree. This was Deborah's tree. In fact, a tree we bought it at Lifestyle Nursery, and Deborah started. And it was a small little tree, and then the pot cracked, and that's the only pot Dave had. Oh, thank you for the coffee. So it's this huge pot, but it's actually grown into the pot. It was probably about this sort of size. Yeah. In fact, smaller than this when it was put in there 2 years ago, and that's the value. That's the value of a big pot. Look how amazing that is, and look how healthy that is.
But that one's doubled.
No, more than doubled. More than doubled. This is a really lovely ligustrum, ovifolium. It's the small leaf privet. Dave bought that from Anthony, and it's just a really beautiful sort of broom-shaped tree that's incredibly vigorous.
That thing pushed it out of that's a year's repot, Rich, and it
so
pushed
vigorous.
It probably pushed it 2 centimeters out of the pot. That's how.
Yeah. Then a bunch of other little trees. This is quite cool. This is a little box tree that I used for a video, an instructive video on how to style trees from nursery stock, and did it with Dave's son Guylan, who put the videos together. And this was a little thank you gift to him to say, hey, this is the tree we worked on, and I'd like you to have it. And clearly he doesn't like it, and Dave's now got it, or something like that. So
have
other
you seen
trees,
his garden?
yeah,
It's so small he's got to go outside to change his
other
mind.
trees here. This is a standard azalea that I decided I was going to create something very different with. It's about to start flowering. So that's quite cool. Just goes to show what you can do with the standard. And this I wrapped and snapped the trunk even, and it's healed over so nicely. But I quite like that style of an azalea. It's quite unique.
Rich, I find a lot of azaleas, they flower at different times.
They do.
The one that we'll see at the top, I don't know if you know which one.
The white one.
It's been flowering for the last 2 months. This guy's just been flowering now for the last week.
So this is about right. That one at the front there is one of Keith Kirsten's. It's called Encore.
Yeah.
the actual species encore, because it just keeps, you clap
Yeah,
and
it
it comes
doesn't stop.
back.
Yeah. But I've been cutting them off a lot.
So this is quite cool as well. These are some cuttings, some Ficus natalensis Natal figs that were cuttings. I put them together in a little group. It's on a piece of it's a ceramic little slate. But I just love it. It's just, to me, it's really beautiful. Really beautiful.
It's just come out. Rich, what's that? What is that? Instead of moss, that just makes it
Oh,
different.
so this is leptonilla. Leptonilla. It's like a little. It's very
little
very
fern.
invasive, but it's a little fern.
Yeah.
Gets little flowers on it, but it's just lovely. I love the fact that the leaves are kind of in scale from a bonsai point of view.
But you know what you're good at is not just the tree. It's this. A lot of
The
your
landscape.
a lot of your trees that are on slate. Go and have a look what you've put in those. I don't know if they're called accents.
Yeah, it's accents in the landscape.
Yeah, it's
so that's leptonilla. It's really nice.
Yeah.
And then a couple of a really cool fig that Dave has done incredible things with. When he first got this tree, it was half the size, and he's done a really good job of building it. And it's a tree I've had very little to do with. It's a tree he got from Anthony, and it's been something he's worked on himself, which has been fantastic. So he's learnt a lot from this tree, and done incredibly well with it. So that's coming.
It just needs it's starting to lose its leaves now.
And that's good. A tree that we rescued. It was looking terrible. It had been repotted at the wrong time of the year. It literally. So we repotted it, put it into a crate, went into my hothouse before Dave had one, and we were like, okay, let's just hold thumbs. This maybe isn't going to. And look at this. It's just absolutely amazing. I was just come. So it's going to be quite a natural.
So we're going to use that white pot that's in the Liggerstrom.
Yes.
We're using that one for this one. Yeah.
Absolutely. And you've done a good job. So the last time I was here, it was, okay, Dave, I want you to wire these things. I want you to cut back. Let's reduce it more.
Is that right?
So it's going to be a rounder shape. So it's going to have multiple, it's going to be a round crown. And you're going to have to make it up of a number of branches.
Okay.
So this is where I can come back. And may I? Okay. So if you can come in a little bit closer. So this is one of the cool things. Dave's at the point now where I can say, this is what I want you to do with the tree, and I step back and Dave will do it. And then I can come back like now and I can say, okay, well, you've done well here, you've done well here. There are a couple of things that I think you could still work on. And one of the things that you'll notice here is that the curves on the wire are very close together. So the angles, it's much too close together, which means that it's got very little holding power. So look at this. If I bend this, it's not going to hold.
Would you go stronger?
And I would have used a slightly thicker wire, and I would have used at least a 45-degree angle, so it looks a little bit more like this. That's a much better angle or gap between the wire, which is going to hold the wire a lot better than something like this, which isn't going to hold it at all.
Rich, so
and this is too close.
Sometimes you're busy threading or you're busy wiring, and there's a bud there.
Yes.
So sometimes you don't want to go right on the bud. What do? Do you go this side or go that side?
So you've got to pick a side, and I would pick a side
that's
depending
wider.
on rather wider than closer, unless and maybe close for one turn and then lengthen it again.
Because that happens that you want to protect those things because it might be a bud you need.
Absolutely do.
And just wiring blindly, I think is dangerous. But I take your point.
So even something like this here. So there you can see, even it's very difficult. See, it doesn't even hold, and it doesn't hold because you haven't spread the tension of the wire over enough of the branch.
Yeah.
So and that's what you need to do. So the wire, believe it or not, this wire on this branch, you would get far more bend if the tension was spread a little bit further along the branch. No, I kid you not.
I thought the more wire you put on.
No. So I'm glad you're saying this. This is a very, very
My logic
valuable
says
conversation.
the more wire you put on, the more it will bend.
No, absolutely not. It depends on so think of the tension of the wire. So if you're looking at this piece, here, the wire isn't actually spread over a portion of the it's around that, which isn't going to bend it instead of like that.
Angle. So it's the degree of the
degree. So we're looking for at least a 45-degree angle.
Okay. I learned
and
something.
that is going to then, so like this, for instance, the wire, the tension is over far more.
Yes, I got you. Okay, that's good learning. Thank you.
There we go. So that's the cool thing, is that Dave does his own thing on some of the trees. and we can come back and there's a learning from it. And this is definitely one of those trees where Dave is developing and learning on, because it's not one of his best trees or one of his precious trees. And then the others where he said, yeah, he won't do that, and he'll do portions, or he'll do it under guidance.
If that tree is not worth to me, so if you see me, I lost that tree today, it's okay, it's not the end of the world.
There we go.
But it's also, if I get a tree, and a really good tree from Richard, and I lose it, that's worse than the tree.
I'm going to be upset.
I'm going to be upset. So these trees I just respect. I just don't touch it. I called Richard, I said, come, you need to come and help here. And that's lekker. So some trees I won't touch. Some trees like this tree, you've given me a lot of guidance.
Yes.
But
remember, this is the one where you went a little pick at the wrong time. And then I said, okay, but now we can't build a tree because now we're going to have these little pockets, little things. It's going to be, it's the wrong, we can't do anything with it. Please let it grow so that we can start to wire it, which is now what's happened. So Dave's now started to wire some of this. But now we're getting, you can see this lovely big broom shape over this rock. And the very cool thing about this, so this was somebody who passed away, and some trees moved on. And it's really nice to have that heritage and again, that conversation. Do you have a succession plan? Do you have, for me, Deborah knows there are a couple of phone calls that she needs to make if something happens to me, and one of those phone calls is to Dave. Hey, Richard's trees need to go. Because the worst thing that happens when people pass away is that a significant other sort of hangs on to the trees because it's part of that person. They don't want to let them go, but they don't really know how to look after them, and then the trees start to suffer, and then they start to die, which makes you feel even worse.
Richard, actually, it doesn't even take a year to have a tree going deteriorating.
Correct.
It's one season, and then it's
just a couple of weeks not watering properly.
Yeah.
So it's very important. And so really, I was very chuffed to have got my hands on this tree. It's been on this rock for a very long time. Part of it had rotted out, but you can even see by the cut paste here how well it has. Look at this; it's all going to heal over. This won't even be a scar in a couple more years.
Have you picked this tree up?
Yeah, the rock's very heavy. Yes, fortunately it's in a mica pot, which is quite cool. Yes. But this is going to be lovely, and it was big and had horrible wiring on it, and I cut everything off and started again. And look at it now. So well done, Dave. This is great.
Look at the leaves, eh?
Stunning.
These are all new.
So this is straight. This is straight out of the. So what Dave's done today is take some of the trees out of the hothouse to put them onto shelves for us, and today they'll go back into the hothouse for at least another month before they come out. It's lovely.
Yeah, I love these things.
The turntables.
With the heavy trees.
Yeah.
They really, because I know I'm not as strong as you, but for us to pick things up, and
that's hectic.
So I leave this table here to work. Some trees I can't take there.
Okay.
So I leave this turntable here, and if I've got to work on a tree left, I'll come in. I'm not talking about heavy work, but I'll put it here, and then I can work, and I can walk there, and I can. Fantastic. So this is kind of my work table in the middle of the shed because I literally can't pick this tree up. It's too heavy.
Something else that Dave's got right. He's been very good about, obviously the design of this garden fits in with the architectural design of the house and the estate, and that's been quite important. But because Dave's a gardener who had an immaculate garden and then brought bonsai in, part of the not having a nursery section is where would I put the nursery section because it's not going to look so good. But the aesthetics have been really important for Dave. And even just simple things like this table. So this is, it's a composite plastic.
Yeah, it's like decking stuff, whatever.
But it's decking, I mean, this is going to last longer than both of us, our ages combined. And it works extremely well. It's very easy to work with. So it's material that's going to outlast the trees. It's amazing, and it looks incredibly good.
Yeah.
So Dave's garden's great from that point of view. Really, really good.
Yeah, I think that the learning is always I'd go wider.
Oh, the gaps in between.
Yeah, okay. You'll see, and the other one they two, and then the stones don't want to go off. So I'll go a little bit wider.
So that's one thing, and the other thing that we did chat about is, and here it's fine because it's protected. But if this is out in the full sun, the black surface attracts a lot of heat, which can be amazing, can be not so good. Obviously, it affects your watering, but that's definitely something you want to look at when you're designing a garden. Is what color are your benches? And that's
very good learning.
The sun will do.
One doesn't think of it.
No, you don't normally. Yeah. Okay, so let's move along here. Nice, really old hollow trunk celtus that came from Anthony. This has got a great story to it. This is an elm group that Kathy started many years ago. In fact, this is actually quite a cool story. This branch here, there was a bigger branch on this tree, and she was at a show, and that was at the stage where Kathy was winning everything. She was winning everything, and unfortunately, people get quite competitive. It brings out the worst in us sometimes, this competitive streak. And somebody went along and broke the branch on this tree in this group that she'd won an award. I mean, just spiteful or something. I don't know. I don't think I've ever heard of that before, but how terrible. And she managed to regrow. You can even see with the scar is here. She managed to regrow a branch underneath it.
Wow.
But this has been a bonsai for probably 35 to 40 years. And so I redesigned it. I took the trees apart and I rebuilt the forest because I wasn't quite happy with some of the angles, but tried to keep it as much as I could, still Kathy's, and moved some of the smaller trees around. And yeah, I think it looks pretty cool. Put it in a really nice pot.
Yeah, the pot's nice.
Compared to what it was in. But this is a tree I would happily load
Does
up.
that come from the same factory, that pot and that pot?
No. So this is a Korean pot.
Because you look at the
Tongray.
colour, they kind of...
Yeah, that's
as
a
tongray.
Japanese. That's a Japanese economy range.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what's
This
nice
this
about
quality is better.
The shape, the smallness of those leaves. They're
tiny, eh?
minute.
Yeah, they're tiny. These are old. They're really old elms.
This is a lovely grouping.
I love it.
Yeah.
So now, just by looking at this tree, I can say that, if I look at the coarseness of the branching here, and I know we've wanted to get some height, and look at the fine twigging down the bottom, what we're going to want to do this season is pinch here a lot more, and maybe let some of this grow to redistribute some of the... So even here, you'll note that there's some dieback on these twigs.
Yeah.
And that's because the strength of the tree has now gone into the apex. And so what we're going to want to do is get the strength back into the bottom.
Clive, I mean, that is probably the most important lesson today, is I've got to cut back the apex, put a little bit of energy there, because I read an article, the universe only gives this tree so much energy for the season, that's it. Can't go and buy the stuff at Pick and Pay. You must decide how you want to distribute that energy, and as Richard says, listen, the apex is too strong, cut it down, let it... That, if you understand that, you understand bonsai.
Yeah.
And you kind of think, no man, this thing must grow, Rich. So no, the energy and the balance of the tree needs to always be in equilibrium, and that's, if you look at it, it does look a bit dominant, hey?
Yeah, you can see. If you look at the twigging here, I mean, this twigging is amazing. Look how fine that is, absolutely amazing. And then if you look at that,
it looks dominant.
You can see it's very, very strong.
Yeah.
And because the tree is apically dominant, it's a species that wants to grow. So we've got to make sure that we keep this back to get some more energy down here.
So that you don't learn in books. I'm telling you don't learn that in...
it's very difficult to... You might see in the book, but it's so difficult to apply it.
Because you can't see the tree. You can see any picture looks great, but that learning to me is probably the most important in the last years. Just finding the balance of the tree, not just trying to grow a tree.
Yeah. So here we've got a couple of other trees. This is a Celtis I absolutely loved. You can see it's callousing over nicely. This was dug from a garden. Dave, this is a tree here that Dave got from Bishopswood. It was completely restyled. And this is also good learning, because when...
It did nothing.
I had nothing to do with this tree until kind of after. And Dave, as the shoots would grow, he would cut them back. So he had these little balls.
Yeah.
And
do you remember the snip, snip, snip?
Yes, this was one of the trees. And I said, Dave, you're not going to be able to build a tree with if you don't have anything to build it with.
Yeah.
We need to let it grow.
You need material.
And so now Dave has created some branching here, which is absolutely lovely.
So if a friend comes who doesn't know anything about bonsai and says, this is in the way, I mean, back.
Why does it sound tidy?
They don't understand it.
Yeah.
That, listen, you need your apex to
your
grow.
hedge needs trimming.
Always. Yeah. And now, for the first time, I'm learning, okay, you need to develop material before you can develop the pad.
So this is fantastic. It was a much bigger pot that we've put something smaller, and a lot of potential in this olive. But again, a fantastic tree for Dave to learn on.
Yeah.
You've got to have trees like this. It can't all be like this that's just pinching every year.
This tree, Rich, is the one you cut off?
Yes. Oh, yes, that's right. So this is the Commiphora.
So this guy was about, I'm guessing,
Yeah.
Like this tall.
Big fat.
But it had inverse taper.
Yes.
It was going thin, and then all of a sudden, and it just looked ugly. And Richard said, listen, let's cut.
And then everything, you had nothing on this. And this has been styled from the beginning, and look how well this is done.
Yeah. you know, when you buy a tree and you're so proud of it, and your mentor comes along and says, Brew, we're going to cut the tree in half. You know, and then you think, well, then what? No, then we're just going to have a stump. But you just got to trust the process.
So we still, on this one, Dave, are going to have to work at the transition between this thick piece and this thinner piece. So this we want to thicken up. So we're going to have to figure out how we're going to do that. I mean, they do push back branches quite easily, so we could grow this and this, let them really grow. But for me, I would rather let this apex go big and double the size of this.
Yeah, okay.
And I think if you can do that this year, this tree will improve dramatically. The funny thing about these trees, Afrikaans kan nie do it, can't die.
It's not true.
I've killed a couple of them. So, and
sorry,
frost,
I
actually.
see that for the chicken.
Yeah. Has this been in your hothouse?
Yes.
Yeah, good. Okay, good. And that's what mine died because of frost. Black frost came along and that's what it was. But it definitely can die.
I think the learning is, if you think, but I bought a tree, it must be, I can't afford to cut it down, and you know, and you don't have the vision to cut it down.
Yeah.
Where a guy like Richard comes along and says, Brew, I see art, and I'm going to do this. And in the beginning you say, what the hell, you're cutting half my tree away. But that's what you've got to do. You've got to trust the mentor, you've got to trust the process, and look what I think this is 2 years, eh?
Yeah.
I don't think this is more.
Yeah, no, it's
and
not
it's
more
actually
than 2
come
years.
out quite nicely.
They're phenomenally well. Phenomenally well. You've done a great job there.
No, this is fertilizer. Man.
Yeah, so Dave and I have talked about coaching quite a lot, and he's shared this, and I know he won't mind me sharing this with you, that when he left, from studying and went to go and work, he decided that he was never going to, in his mind, he was never going to work for a boss or a manager, or refer to them in his mind as a boss or a manager. This person was his coach. And such a great concept, Dave, and something I've used a lot in what I do in my life, helping corporates, is this idea of a coach. Because, as you said to me, your job is to learn as much from your coach as you possibly can, because you've got a finish line. You want to get better at whatever it is you want to, whether it's races, whether it's life, you want it to get better. So your job is to learn as much as possible, and the coach's job is to teach you as much as possible to help you to become the best that you can become.
Yeah.
And for me in this garden, because there's so many of my old trees here, and you're not shy to tell people that, can you imagine if people came and these are Richard's trees, but they look terrible. So this is the beauty here is I want to be proud with my student and what he's done with these trees, and you want to be proud of your own trees and be better. So it's such a wonderful symbiotic relationship.
Yeah. I think if it wasn't for a coach, I'd be 30% down the road.
Yeah.
Versus 100% down the road, you know.
Yeah.
Because I think you're also committed. You can't just buy a tree and just think, oh, I'm just going to put it in the garden. That tree is your commitment to make sure it lives. Because, you know, anything in a pot is your man's responsibility. Anything in nature is nature's responsibility, if it's in the ground.
Yeah.
This is...
It's yours.
You better look after it.
So it's a great concept, that, and I think also the how many of us do that at the beginning? We have people, we're hobbyists, we have people around us, we look at books and something, but how many of you have actually got a person?
Yeah.
And yes, there's a consulting fee, and yes, but I mean, there's a lot that's outside of it. You know, maybe when I drive here and come here and spend some formal time, there's consulting fee, but otherwise it's a friendship where it's, hey, Brew, there's this, send a picture, should I be doing this, should I be doing that, should I be doing, and
that happens a lot.
It's a joy for me.
I phone you, say, hey, listen, check this picture.
Yeah.
Can you say, look at this, look at the color, look at the, and so it doesn't always have to be one-on-one.
No, not at all.
We've all got teams.
But you need that, it's so important.
Yeah.
And somebody that knows your trees. So Dave, I sometimes say, Dave, you don't have to tell me which the
I know
tree.
exactly which tree.
I know which tree it is.
No, Brew, you don't. You work a lot.
Yeah, surely you don't remember. And I know every single tree here, and I know everything about the trees. So that's also valuable, because it's not me coming on and so this was hard in the beginning because I didn't know the history of the tree. We've never repotted this tree. I don't know what the roots look like.
It's organic,
I know that it would be organic
it's organic
soil.
and lekker.
So that I know instinctively, but I don't know enough to be able to really be able to advise Dave. I can sort of help him, but it wasn't my tree. Give me a year or two once we've repotted it and we've spent some more time, then it's a lot easier for me. But having that one person that knows your trees and can really help you and advise you, I think is gold.
I think it's also somebody who sits in the pavilion and watches the game rather than the player playing the game. if you got a guy who's just saying, listen, check about this, somebody from an holistic point of view and saying, I think we need to do this. Listen, you need to think about this. We need to, and that helps because it just makes you a better person.
Yeah. So this is when I first came into Dave's garden. This is one of his favorite. I think still one of his favorite trees. A real pride and joy. It's a monkey thorn, and I guess a learning with indigenous thorn trees. They really don't like to be on a stone or in very little soil, or they do like a slightly deeper pot. So this one really struggled. It was on a beautiful piece of art, a ceramic sort of slab pot, but the tree, the soil, you really battled to keep the soil on it, and it dried out incredibly quickly, and so the tree just gradually suffered and suffered and suffered. So last year we made the decision to let's get a crate for it, and let's give it a chance to grow again. And look how.
Is that an imported Chinese pot?
No, this is imported
from Builder's Warehouse.
Pot from Builder's Warehouse. But I mean, I love crates. We love crates aesthetically. And look at this, fantastic. But look at how the tree has. Look at this growth. That's that plus this in one season. And this tree, we honestly thought that there was a chance it wasn't going to survive.
It had three little roots this long.
It was terrible.
As thin as a vein.
It was terrible. And this one, this didn't go into the hothouse, eh?
I couldn't fit it.
That's right, it didn't fit. But look at this, in one season. So it just goes to show, don't be scared to take your trees out of these little pots for a season or two, put them into a crate, let it really grow, develop better roots, and then you can cut it back and put it into a pot again. But now, can you imagine the joy we are going to have in cutting this back to shape, because it's just so healthy and we don't need to worry about it. This is the end of winter, and it hasn't even dropped leaves. It's amazing, absolutely amazing. So that's a great lesson to learn.
So I keep the wooden pots. You can see them on the top there.
Yes.
I keep them because if something happens,
never know.
You need to put it into ICU, I call it,
Yeah.
and then it's fine. You slip on it. You don't
Yes.
try and
Yes.
you just put it in, and that saved that box saved this tree.
So that, number one, saved the tree, and number two, the thing that Dave has become obsessed with, it's fantastic obsession, is media and soil media. And so compared to the soil that this tree was in, it was in organic, but it was very compacted, very fine, which is part of the reason why the tree suffered. And now it's an incredible media that is very free draining, and look how the tree has survived. So
But
fantastic.
I think that morning we spent a lot of time sifting the dust out,
yeah.
separating 1 cup of this or 1 cup of
Yeah.
that.
But when you
And
get it
then
right, it's amazing.
once you get it right, it's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a couple of trees here. This is a swamp cypress that Dave got relatively recently from me. This one I grew in water, but not in water. This is quite cool. You might learn something about swampies here. I learned this from a friend in Australia. It was in a black plastic seed tray above a trough of water with a little pump in the bottom of the water. And then there was a pipe around the tree with little holes in the pipe. And so, but the pot was raised above the water. So the pump pumped up water and obviously trickled out of the pipe and then went through the soil. So essentially hydroponics. So you've got this water. So it's not just sitting in water where swampies is like in a stagnant water. It's been oxygenated the whole time.
Yeah.
So this grew from this tiny little trunk into this, and if you have a look at the back there, I mean, the big trunk chop at the back here. Let me try and find it for you. That is completely, here we go, that is completely healed over, and this is 4 years. So this tree, literally, from nothing, 4 years, look at it.
Yes, but it loves water.
It's incredible. It loves water.
It loves
water.
It's one tree that always says, how's it? I'll need more water.
So,
please."
but what an incredible 4 years. But just goes to show you, in terms of getting it right. Then these two here are buddleias that came out with that big olive in 1997. And again, the wood, they were under the sprinkler system. But this again, I think is, in my mind, some of the best carving I've ever done.
That's incredible art.
So it's
Rich, that twist, the duck twist. That is so cool.
So I love this tree. And if I look how thick this apex has got, Dave. Wow. I mean, look how healthy this thing is. So this tree now is ready to be opened up, and So we need to define the pads a little bit more. It's become a little bit, and with buddleias,
Yeah.
because they grow so quickly and because you can clip them,
Yeah, they become
they
pom-pom.
become a little bit pom-pomish. So what Dave's done here is, I know what the tree looked
Remember,
like
this is
when
the tree
he-
that nearly died as well.
It
with
did.
that pesticide, so I did nothing this year.
It is so healthy and so amazing in a very, very unique sorrel pot with dragon feet. Very unique, and very few trees could pull it off, and this one does. When I saw the pot, I was like, okay, I've got the tree for it. But this is, I get excited when I look at the ramification and what you're going to be able to do with this
More
tree
open it
when
up,
we
more
open
wire
it
it.
up. Yeah, this is going to be amazing.
Yeah.
But what a buddleia. And the whole, it's been carved right through. I just love.
Well, you can actually see through it. If you stand it,
yeah.
you can.
It's just,
No,
it just
listen, that carving was awesome, Rich.
I quite like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, then we're almost at the end of this section here. This is an olive that I carved at a club demonstration, and then managed to acquire the tree. I was very grateful for that. And I'll just do some Dave's weeding here. And this is literally 3 years. This tree is 3 years from a trunk that had nothing on it, absolutely nothing on it. And one of the best things about this tree, if you stay where you are, is I love designing trees that can be viewed from multiple angles. And this tree can be viewed from literally almost any place
Yeah.
on the tree. So
Yeah,
although
that wood is just awesome.
although this is my front, sort of there, where that's kind of my front, but it really could be viewed from anywhere. And if you think that this is 3 years, and look at the thickness of these, even the bottom branches, and that just goes to show you, a lot of people grow olives where they extend it and then start the branch already and cut it back and try and develop girth by doing it that way. I find that by letting it grow, this tree was out here and cut back and out here and cut back, you actually get much faster, more dense growth way more quickly. But obviously, as Dave said, you just have to be able to put up with the fact that the tree looks untidy for a lot of the time. But the results are, I mean, look at this amazing tree. I would take this back in a heartbeat. This is an old maple that Dave acquired a couple of years back. But again, you can see it was a tree that was never wired from the beginning. So it's very pleasing, it's very lovely. But in terms of quality of bonsai, taper, so we had a couple of decisions here. It looks beautiful like it is. Do we leave it like this, or do we cut everything back and start again? So a couple of choices there, and Dave decided we can do that with other trees. Let's leave this one like it is. This was. Do we want to tell them about the accident?
That's fine.
Dave went away. I'll tell them
I'll
about the
cry.
accident. So Dave went away, and he left some staff who were going to water the trees, and somehow this pot slipped, and it was a pot identical to this, slipped and broke on the floor, and Dave was away, and the poor person was absolutely distraught. And then Dave had to come back and try and get the exact same pot and then repot it, and fortunately the tree came back without any damage. So yeah, but it's a tree that's been growing as a bonsai for a very long time.
No, there's nothing here.
So on this bench here, I'm not going to go through all of these ones, sort of trees that are in various different stages. This is quite a cool olive forest that was very weak. Dave put it in a bigger pot.
By the way, have you seen this? Look at this little guy. The littlest
Yes,
is
the strongest.
I mean, look at this.
Amazing.
Yet the others are kind of still.
No, it's come back nicely.
Yes,
Dave
but-
almost lost
but
these
the
trees.
little one is, yeah, this tree nearly died as well.
But this has come back nicely. And again, bigger pot,
Yeah.
so that helped. Okay, then around this side here, and you'll see Dave said that at the moment not enough sun here, but a beautiful little section.
In summer, this is full because it gets afternoon shade.
Amazing, hey?
So, I think you'll.
So these are trees that Dave is kind of starting to divorce himself from, which is not the
Yeah.
worst thing. He did a very good job here of a very commercial sarissa that he repotted and probably did the best with it that he possibly could, and trying to get away from the pom-pom look. But if you saw what he bought and what this is now, you've done well, Dave.
Yeah, I think. But I
Would you
think
buy it again?
You get no. But when you don't know, that's a beautiful
You
tree.
don't know. And here's some really cool trees. So it's a maple that he started from nothing, and a great learning tree. He's done very well with that. This is a very old bougainvillea that I had for years. In fact, that same literati symposium where Craig and I worked on that juniper, we worked on this bogey. It had two. It was like a catapult. So that is old. It's just beautiful. I love the dead wood and then here, this is something you don't see every day. It's a really beautiful ficus nerifolia willow leaf fig. I started from a cutting. That was 20 years ago now. And if you look at that girth, it's just lovely. So that's a beautiful, look at this budding. So that's a really cool ficus. And then here is Berg Davii and some amazing trees. Dave, you do really well with these. They're just beautiful.
I think that's only fertilizer rich. I seriously, if you think, how did these trees look, say it's got to do with fertilizer? I don't think it's got, you could blame the, watering, but I think it's...
And you were good like that. Dave is a feeder of note.
Yeah, but again, not overdo it.
No.
But lots of times I take, these little things you buy at Builders, those little tick-ticks.
Yeah.
I fill it up with, 50 grams of liquid. And as I'm watering, Rich, I see some of the trees, as I'm holding it.
Yes.
And you kind of just water it but it must always be diluted. Don't try and get a tree quick. No, please.
Reach for this one.
Okay.
So this is a really nice. This is a grafted little shimpaku itogawa. I don't think it's itogawa. Actually, it's a kishu. But it's a little grafted tree that Dave got. It's really beautiful. And Dave, it was in a little nursery pot, and Dave said, "I want to get a pot for it." So I said, "Well, it's juniper. We normally get subtle. We go for
when can we tell you to cut?
we go for a subtle pot. We like subtle with junipers. So subtle is like earthy colors and maybe unglazed. So Dave's like, "But what about this pot?" I said, No, that's not the pot.
Absolutely not that pot.
Absolutely not that pot. That's not the pot.
Listen
They
to
said,
me.
but I quite like it. Look, it's got this.
Listen to me, I'm
it's
your
got
coach.
these-
Absolutely not this pot.
He said, but I really love this pot. I said, you know what? Put it in that pot.
Yeah.
Because you must love it. And if you love it, put it in the pot. So it's
terrible. Okay, Rich.
it isn't. It's
And
not the
moving
worst pot,
on.
but that's how we learn. And if you didn't have that, I mean, it's one of those few trees that you got to make the decisions yourself. How fantastic! And that's how we learn. But what a rad little tree! It is beautiful. And look how healthy Dave's. It's why I love moving trees onto Dave's garden, because I know they're going to get better treatment here than they get in my own. Really good. So Dave, I think for me at the end of this video, I want to congratulate you on what you've done in a very short space of time. Number one, building a collection of incredible trees. But number two, the learning, how you've grown.
No, the learning's been lovely.
You've grown so quickly,
Yeah.
and what you've done with your trees. Every time I come here, it's like, wow, you're moving it on, and you've learned what you've needed to do that. And kudos to you, it's amazing, really.
Yeah, I think, first of all, it comes back to the love, You must love this. You can't have it as a hobby if you don't love it. Like when you get home from work, what do you want to do?
Bonsai.
I've also got that illness, and you can't recover from it. So, Rich, but Clive, again, if Richard wasn't in this game, we wouldn't have this video. We really wouldn't. It would be 10 trees, and they're like in the garden somewhere. And you see that a lot when you're in bonsai, a guy says to you, "Oh, I've also got a bonsai at home." It's those woolies that you know that one that you got scammed with.
Yes.
That one.
That one.
And he's quite proud of it. So you just say, "Oh, it's very nice." But the nice thing is, Berg Davies, what they do and what you must do in winter, and so some of the trees you got to know their species as well. And so it makes you a richer gardener.
Yeah.
Because when you go to the garden to a nursery now, your eyes are totally looking different than what you would do as a commercial or as a lover of gardening. Now you're looking at very different things.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming along on the journey. And thanks again to Richard Wright. The bonsai world is so much better with you in it. Have a lovely day and see you all next week, Saturday.